multiple Israeli aircraft entered Lebanese airspace Wednesday in violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which calls for Israel to respect Lebanon's sovereignty. The state-run national news agency reported that the aircraft flew at low altitude over several locations in South Lebanon. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that such flyovers were deeply concerning and that Israeli aircraft made near daily overflights above Lebanon between October 2019 and April 2020. Israel often enters Lebanese airspace with an apparent purpose of attacking targets in Syria. Amid a new outbreak of violence in the West Bank, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his new governing partner in occupied Jerusalem on Wednesday for talks that were expected to address Israel's plans to annex parts of the territory. The visit comes amid an uptick in West Bank violence. The Palestinian Health Ministry said a 15-year-old was killed in confrontations with Israeli forces early on Wednesday in the southern West Bank. Occupation forces shot dead a Palestinian teenager during clashes in the occupied West Bank Wednesday, the Palestinian Health Ministry said, as U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo landed in Israel. The Health Ministry announced that Zayed Qaisia, 15 years old, was killed by a live bullet in the head fired by the occupation soldiers in Al-Fawar camp near Hebron in the southern West Bank, with a further 4 Palestinians injured during clashes. The Israeli military said troops had entered the camp to make arrests and had been met with a violent riot in which shots were heard and a soldier was lightly injured. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will enforce around-the-clock nationwide curfew during the 5-day Eid al-Fitr holiday later this month to fight the coronavirus, the Interior Ministry said as infections spike. The kingdom, which has reported the highest number of virus cases in the Gulf region, is scrambling to limit the spread of the deadly disease. The ministry said in a statement, a full lockdown will be reimposed around the country from May 23rd to 27th. The period coincides with the Muslim festival that marks the end of the holy fasting month of Ramadan. Russia registered more than 10,000 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday, continuing a grim trend that has seen the country become a global virus hotspot. Health officials reported 10,028 new cases over the last 24 hours, bringing Russia's total number of infections to 242,271. The majority of Russia's new cases were registered in the capital, a government virus tally said, where Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin has extended a lockdown until the end of May. The Health Ministry said Spain has reported a further 184 deaths, taking its total number of coronavirus fatalities to 27,104. The total number of confirmed coronavirus cases has reached 228,691. That gives Spain the third largest number of cases in the world after the US and Russia, but it's followed closely by the UK. Meanwhile, Spanish authorities are planning to keep borders closed to most travelers from abroad until July, 2 foreign ministry sources said on Wednesday, in a move to try and avoid a second wave of contagion from the coronavirus. Land borders with France and Portugal have been closed since a state of emergency was declared in mid-March to fight the pandemic, pushing the economy to a near standstill and hitting its tourism sector hard. According to the Central Epidemic Command Center, Taiwan did not report any new cases of COVID-19 for a 6th consecutive day on Wednesday, keeping the total at 440 since the pandemic began last year. The command center said it was also the 31st straight day that no domestically transmitted infections were recorded in Taiwan. Of the 129 people who returned from India on a specially arranged flight earlier this month, One developed respiratory symptoms and was sent to the hospital, while the others are still being quarantined. According to the Health Ministry's statistics, since the outbreak of the COVID-19 disease last year, 349 of Taiwan's 440 cases have been classified as imported and 55 as local infections. The government in Vienna said Wednesday Austria and Germany plan to open their border in mid-June, after it was closed for 2 months in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The tourism minister said from June 15th, the opening of the border between Germany and Austria will be possible. Restrictions on crossing the border will begin to be eased from May 15th, enabling business trips and family visits to take place. The Austrian government was to examine Wednesday a progressive lifting of restrictions on freedom of movement to and from other border countries, including Switzerland and Eastern nations. Germany has a warning in force until mid-June against taken foreign holidays. Australians need to stay on guard against new outbreaks of the novel coronavirus as mobility restrictions are eased this week, authorities said, as the death toll rose to 98 on Wednesday. Australia is one of the most successful countries in its handling of the pandemic, with about 7,000 cases and the average daily increase sliding to just 0.14%. New South Wales state, of which Sydney is capital, recorded 6 new cases overnight after none on Tuesday, with 3 linked to community transmission. The number of people who were killed in a militant attack on a maternity ward in the Afghan capital has risen to 24. Mothers, newborn babies and nurses were among the victims. The Health Ministry said at least 16 people were injured. President Ashraf Ghani has ordered the resumption of offensive operations against the Taliban and other groups. The Taliban warned Wednesday it was ready to fight back after Afghan forces were ordered to resume strikes in response to a series of deadly attacks, further unraveling a fragile peace process. Myanmar's military has considered its troops abused prisoners in Rakhine State after a video of soldiers battering blindfolded detainees spread on social media, a rare admission of wrongdoing by a force often accused of acting with impunity. The video, which emerged on Sunday, shows plainclothed men punching and kicking the heads of handcuffed and blindfolded detainees. According to the Army Chief's Office website, the 5 had been arrested on suspicion of being Arakan Army insurgents and were being transferred to Rakhine State capital by boat on April 21st when the incident occurred. Global stocks and oil prices fell Wednesday as fears about a second wave of coronavirus infections gripped financial markets. MSCI's index of global shares was down 0.3%. The Pan-European Stock 600 index slipped 1.6%. Banks acted as the drag after a number of negative updates. Shares in Deutsche Bank fell 4.4% after it was reported that top managers will waive 1 month of fixed pay in an effort to cut costs, while fellow German lender Commerzbank and the Netherlands ABN AMRO slumped following first quarter losses. The European Union's borders must reopen fast as coronavirus transmissions ease, with air passengers wearing masks, the bloc's executive was to say on Wednesday, in efforts to salvage the ravaged tourism sector for the lucrative summer season. Draft proposals say the bloc's executive, the European Commission, will on Wednesday urge a return to unrestricted free movement, though that push will stop if there is a major second wave of infections.